we've got to remember that we've been talking about this hypothetical product as something which happens immediately. We've been talking about one example of a $30,000 or euro car that you're selling in one moment, but actually you're selling a large volume of these over a period of time. And so you have to understand the business case in the context of the whole life cycle of your product. So at the beginning, you have to put some effort in, some investment, and later on, you'll sell some and you'll get some money back, some return on investment, ROI. And when you make those sales, you're not going to sell everything immediately. You'll probably keep selling it for years. And during those years, you'll probably have to make improvements. So you have to do additional investment and the sales will go up and down. So you can make a very simple spreadsheet to look at this. And that's what you should do when you're building your product and building your business case. So in our example of our hypothetical car, we can say maybe it has 3 years of development, 4 years of development, 5 years, 6 years of development, but there's a number of years of development where you're just investing and you're not getting anything back. Then we can say that we have on average 100,000 cars a year we're going to sell, but that's not 100,000 cars every year. That's more in some years, less in other years. Usually towards the end of life, as the product ages, it tails off. If you make some changes, it boosts it back up again. But remember, that is directly related to your revenue, and that's directly related to your marginal profit. So then you need to look at your costs and see how your costs are distributed. So your fixed costs, probably at the very beginning, it's just you working on it, as we said, and you're not so expensive, to be honest. But then after you've got your business case approved, you're going to get engineering involved, and just before you launch the product, you're going to get marketing involved, and there's going to be huge communication costs of things like making videos, maybe buying advertising space, doing physical press launches, and things like this. And then there's little costs of refreshing the product and doing quality improvements and feature improvements throughout the life. Then on top of that, you've got the per unit cost, the TDC. So the more you sell, the more that cost is. So then that goes up and down with your sales volume, and you can stack those all together, and then you get total cost per year. And if you compare that total cost per year with your total revenue, you can see how the profit shakes out. So you can see that, for example, in our hypothetical case, we don't make any money until the third year of sales. So this is really important for high investment physical products, that they need a long time to recoup that investment. And time is money, that's a common saying, but what if instead I just put all of that investment money in a savings account in a bank? Because of interest and inflation, money is worth more now than in the future, and this is what's known as the time value of money. So if we put all of those investments, all of that fixed cost and variable cost in a bank, and we look every year with an amount of interest, we can look at the end of our life cycle and we can figure out how much we're going to have in the bank. And that's called the net present value. That amount of money we would have in the future if we'd invested it. It's not actually net present value, there's a different formula for that, but this is a good way of thinking about it. If we compare that to the amount of revenue that we're going to make, the amount of profit that we're going to make actually every year, then if the amount of profit we're going to make at the end of it is higher than if we just put it in the bank and earned interest, then that's a positive business case. That goes ahead. If it's not, then it's what's called the do nothing scenario, which is just put it in the bank and we don't invest in this product. So the good news for our hypothetical business case is that it's positive. It's about 670 million euros, and we should go ahead. But even under that situation where it's positive, this assumes a future interest rate that's stable, no financial crisis, a market that's stable, a very predictable amount of sales, and a currency exchange that's stable. So Forex, foreign currency exchange, is really important when you've got suppliers in different countries, you're selling in different countries. Those currency rates are always changing, and that can have a huge impact on your profit. Also, even if the NPV is really borderline, it's still probably better to make a product and get it out there. Because if you don't make that product, if you just put all that money in the bank, you're still paying all of your engineers and all of your marketing people, all your production staff, you still have the factories, you still have all the dealers, and they need something to do. If you don't have a better plan of what to do, you need to get something out there to put into your dealerships, into your retailers, to get out there with customers, to keep your brand alive, to keep everyone occupied, to keep everyone in jobs. So you can, like I said, put all this in a big spreadsheet. The math's really simple. The terminology is confusing, but the math's really simple. And you can just take 10% off of everything and just look one by one at how you can improve profit. So, for example, I've done that for our hypothetical business case, and you can see that, if you put 10% on the price, that's $3,000 or 3,000 euros. That's a significant amount for the customer. You might drive a bunch of customers away, and you're only going to make a few hundred on your profit at the end of the day. So that's not a great idea. Some of the other items are very small impact, like your dealer margin and things like that, your transport. But the really, really big one is your variable cost. If you take 10% off your variable cost, it has thousands of impact on your bottom line. And that's why particularly physical engineering product-based companies have huge teams constantly involved in reducing the variable cost of the products that they're making without impacting the product to the customer. So they can keep the price, but they can reduce that variable cost, and it makes a huge difference to the business case. It's really effective. But you can look at this sort of table and you can consider some companies like Tesla, who notoriously don't give discounts, and they try where possible to direct sell or control their dealerships. And so they are reducing their costs up at that front end of the value stack. Or any software company who their variable costs, the retailing and all those sorts of things are much, much, much lower than any physical products. So obviously they're making much more operational profit. But also you can look at those fixed costs as well. That was all variable items, but if you look at the fixed costs, you could reduce your investment, so try and just cut your marketing budget or cut your engineering budget. Doesn't have a huge impact, to be honest. It's about the same as adjusting your price by 10%, but it's a big money of investment, so maybe that's important for cash flow. You can try and crush your lead time down, so reduce the amount of time your engineers and your marketing people are working up front. Doesn't have a huge impact again in our case, but more effective is to try and sell for longer. So you'll see some companies just try to keep selling the same product for years and years because they've already paid off all their investments. So every one they're selling is making more money. The downside of that is having old products in the marketplace usually doesn't look good for your brand, doesn't look great for your customer, and you're going to be continuously losing market share. But again, you should do this for your product. As a product manager, you're not necessarily responsible for the financials of the product, but you need to build a compelling business case. Like I said, the upper management is your customer. You need to give them something that they'll find attractive. And that will help get your product built, get your product out in the market. So in the next video, we're going to talk about managing the development process, which is project management. Thanks.